Hey everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks. And so a bit of a surprise today. I noticed on the Wargaming website to celebrate their 20th anniversary, they are giving us a reward vehicle. And if you want to get your hands on this, all you have to do is to play a battle in the next 10 days between Tier 4 and Tier 10. And you'll be rewarded with a Polish Tier 2 light tank that is the TKS 20. So this vehicle is interesting for a variety of reasons. Firstly, it is the third Polish vehicle in the game that is actually inside the Polish tech tree. And my estimate is that we're going to be seeing the full Polish tech tree release in about 2 to 3 weeks from now, considering that we're into week 1 of the test server. And so many of you might be wanting to prepare a Polish crew for your tanks and try and do some crew training. Well, this is a good opportunity to at least get a good commander and a driver, maybe for your new 60 TP, your tier 10 Polish heavy tank. If of course you haven't already picked yourself up either the Poodle or the 50 TP. But of course this thing doesn't cost you a penny, unlike those two tanks. However, as with all free reward vehicles, the question is whether this is a free garage slot like Meathead Militia said all those years ago, or if it's worth keeping. So firstly, before we take a look at some gameplay, let's just get a rough idea of what we're dealing with here. Well, the main armament of the TKS 20 is a 20mm autoloader which has 10 rounds in the magazine, and it will fire off that entire magazine within 2 seconds of the first shot. And then after a fairly short 6-second reload, it's ready to go again. Now the average damage on this gun is 11, which means that you can do on average 110 damage within those 2 seconds burst, if you're able to penetrate. And you're probably going to penetrate fairly reliably because the standard penetration is 43, which is very nice for Tier 2. To put that penetration into perspective, the Tier 3 German premium light tank, the Panzer II-J, has 23mm of penetration, and sometimes you can make that work. So you shouldn't be struggling too badly with the TKS until you're dealing with higher tiered tanks. Now the accuracy on this gun is an OK 0.4, which is perfectly fine for short to mid ranges, but due to the 1.8 seconds aim time, if you want to be fully accurate, you're going to have to kind of go tap, tap, tap to allow the gun to fully aim. Now keep in mind, because this is an autoloader, it only has 400 meters firing range, but unless you've got somebody spotting for you, that doesn't really matter, because even with binoculars, vents, a good crew, and even some smallets, we are only packing 386 meters view range on this tank. So what about the durability? Well, 160 hit points and 10mm of frontal armor. That's right, this thing is going to get overmatched by pretty much everything it's going to get shot by. And one word of advice when you're using this vehicle is to keep in mind that the gun is off-center, and so that means it's far better at coming around a corner like this, because then you're exposing a much smaller amount of your tank than when you need to come around the corner like this. So one thing that is extraordinary about this tank is how light it is. Even fully equipped, it is just over 3 tons, and I believe it is the second lightest tank in the game after the UE-57, the French Tier 3 tank destroyer. And so this means with its abysmal engine power of 42, it's still able to get a power to weight ratio of over 13, which will allow it to get up to its fairly mediocre top speed of 45 forwards and 12 backwards. The traverse speed on the tank, again, it's not great, but it's not terrible for such a light vehicle, and you will feel like a bit of a drag car getting around. It's quite hard to turn, especially on the streets of Himmelsdorf, for example. One thing that is excellent about this tank, however, is the concealment. Even though I've only got a 54% concealment crew here, we're packing 28% when moving and 13% when firing when stationary when using a camo net. But again, it's a bit of a shame that you can't really make use of this excellent concealment to engage your opponents at long range because of that max 400 meters firing. Alright, so rolling out on mines, and of course, because there are lots of people playing the TKS 20, there are tons of them in this matchup, so that should be a good opportunity to see what this vehicle's like. Just take a look, see how low profile this vehicle is. And remember, when your tank only weighs 3 tons, you can't just go through fences and you can't go through obstacles on the battlefield without losing a lot of momentum, so do keep that into account. You definitely want to try and avoid crashing into walls, trees. Sometimes trees can just stop you dead in your tracks if they're extra large trees. So keep that in mind and watch out, because the vehicle's mobility isn't incredible, and if you do get slowed down, it can stop you from making plays to try and get into forward positions where hopefully you can try and use some of that 7 degrees of gun depression this tank has to be a little bit brutal. So you'll see that auto aim is not very good on a vehicle like this. You do have to give lead over a moving target. I didn't. However, I didn't feel confident to stay there and take damage from the TKS 20 because remember, this is a glass cannon, and he could deal 110 damage to me, and this thing loses his engine quite rapidly as well, so that's something you've got to watch out for. Alright, so it's all about being sneaky in this tank. I want to try and go forwards, and I'm really worried about the T-46 below me proxy spotting me. However, I'm going to set up my binoculars, and even with binoculars activated, you see how the dynamic view range indicator on the map doesn't even really get that large. Luckily, a small map like mine's, it doesn't really matter that you don't have the best view range. And to be honest, I think I played about 15 games or so in this tank just to get a real good idea of it, and I was ending up on mines, or I was ending up on Abbey, Monastery, whatever you want to call it, in Himmelsdorf. So view range, not so important at Tier 2. It's only when you really start to get up to Tier 3 and Tier 4 where you start to need view range, when you end up on those kind of Malinovka encounters, right? Oh, so anyway, we managed to finish off the T-46 there and now turn our attention to the Su-18. You'll notice that this vehicle's fairly comfortable with regards to its 7 degrees of gun depression. We take a couple of rounds there from the TKS-20 that's below us, but we do manage to finish off the artillery. Well, at least the first artillery, because there's still an Su-26 on the enemy team. So our third kill of the game already, and you can see that, well, mine's at Tier 2, people are a little bit oblivious to where you are, right? They're not really focusing, just like this guy here, and we're going to be able to unload a full magazine into the back of his tank. We even managed to ammo rack him, which is quite useful, because this vehicle, having 160 hit points, if you're on full health, there's no way that, what's going on here? Alright, well, it looks like somebody decided to TK somebody, and then somebody took justice into their own hands. Okay, fine. But yeah, you got to watch out, because when you're fighting a TKS versus a TKS, and that's something that's very frequent on the not on the test server, on the live server right now. When you've got 160 hit points and you do 110 damage in the magazine, you can have this very awkward moment where you both burst each other and then you end up on about 50 hit points, and then it's kind of who reloads first that is going to be able to walk away from the scenario. Anyway, I'm about to try and put some pressure up here on the TKS down below me. It doesn't seem like actually I wanted to go down there, quite rightly so, because we don't know where the IKV-72 is. That Tier 3 Swedish tank destroyer will be able to remove my remaining hit points, I believe, with a single shot with a rather large caliber gun on that vehicle. I remember playing the IKV-72 on Malinovka as well on stream, and we had an absolute riot of a game in that tank. It does feel very... Again, I'm using this word convenient now to describe gun depression. I'm starting to sound a bit like some of the Wargaming developers who start to use these terms when they're describing these vehicles. Alright, anyway, talking about IKV-72, one's just driven out in front of us. And I'm trying to reverse behind the bush here to actually maintain my camo rating, but I decide that I'm just going to fully unload on the vehicle. I only managed to hit 7 out of 11 there. Not too bad, but not great either. I need to give a little bit more lead, but the T-127 on my team manages to finish him off. And it's starting to look really good for our team here. Alright, so the T2 light tank seems to be going after artillery. Again, we're going to use our fairly mediocre mobility on this vehicle to try and get back into position to be able to stop that little seal clubber. Well, I'm not sure if they're a seal clubber. I tell you who are seal clubbers. Everybody who are playing Tier 3 tanks right now and meeting TKS-20s in the matchup. You'll see what I was talking about, the tap-tap. Well, not the tap-tap, but you tap once and then it fires twice with this tank. It fires 2 rounds for each burst. So, how does that make sense that it fires 11 shells then? Oh no, sorry, it fires 10 shells, of course. It fires 10 shells, but does 11 damage with the alpha. So, yeah, it kind of combines up, right? Okay, so I feel fairly confident. We haven't seen the Panzer 38T. I think that they're probably camping all the way around the back there, and I'm going to be a little bit aggressive now. But I make a huge mistake because, oh great, the Panzer 38T has actually come out in the open. I decide to move because I see that he's just spanking me full of APCR rounds, and great, looks like somebody who's either re-rolled or on some kind of a press account just shut me down with premium rounds at Tier 3 against a tank that doesn't have any armor. Anyway, not a bad result here for the TKS-20. Spoilers, this guy goes on to basically demolish the rest of my team. But I just want to show some of the other special things that you can do with this vehicle, considering it is absolutely tiny. Alright, so here we are. This time we're rolling out on Abbey, and we're going to try and make an aggressive play towards the center of the map. And 2 TKS-20s appear right in front of me. And is it that platoon? No, it's not that platoon. It's these 2 TKSs. I thought maybe it was the platoon. And you can see that when it's a TKS-20 versus a TKS-20, it's just this really ugly knife fight. Both tanks seem to lose hit points very quickly indeed, and you kind of want to try and get out of harm's way as quickly as possible. But yeah, I think you might be seeing what I'm suggesting here. Now this position, I can't really think of many tanks in the game that could manage to squeeze through this. Take a look at this, ladies and gents. Yeah, I can actually go forwards. I can even go backwards if I want. And so I'm going to now, look at this. These two guys who were unloading on me earlier, I bet you they didn't expect me to come from this angle, did they? Tap, 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 tap while he's reloading. Now we're going to try and finish off his friend as well. Go through the wall. Look how much those walls slow me down. And there you go. Beautiful moment. Hooray. GG. So yeah, just the possibilities to do a little bit of funky stuff with this tank. If you put your mind to it, I'm sure that if you want to spend some time playing this vehicle and mastering it, I can see reasons to play it, but it's still very awkward for me, especially for when you get into situations like this. What do I do to the front of the LTB? I just don't. The only place that I can get him is if he turns his turret to the side, then I can tap his side of his turret. But again, you know, trying to snipe at long range when you're limited to 400 meters, and just the tap and only doing 11 damage with every time you hit the tank, it is fairly awkward. And then, you know, you can't really even penetrate some of the vehicles on the enemy team, like this H-35. If he was able to end up just against me, there's pretty much nothing that I could do against that tank, even if I wanted to dab the Tukey and fire some premium rounds. However, when an LTP exposes his side armor like that, we kind of take advantage of it. But again, we're only putting in probably about 1 in 3 of the shells that we have in the magazine. There you go, finished him off. GG. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, there's something that I want to warn you about with this vehicle, and that is that don't ever be the one who is reversing. Because look at this. I've got a dead engine, I've got a dead driver, and this TKS 20 is just grinding into me. You can see I heal my engine. This is in half time, by the way. I heal my driver, I try and get back as much as I can, then I decide that I can't get pushed back anymore because I'm going to get shot out from the side here, from the south. And look at this! This guy actually managed to put me up on my butt, I guess. Now my tank is like all upright. And of course, what's going to happen here is he is just going to reload, and then he's going to have a lot of fun. So ladies and gents, watch out with this vehicle. Don't get pushed around in close quarters combat, and alternatively, if you see somebody that you think you can take advantage of, and again, this is only probably going to be relevant for the next few days, then maybe you can get some style points as you take them out. So while one of the perks of the TKS 20 is that you're going to be able to use the next 2 to 3 weeks to either prepare for the Polish tech tree, or alternatively, when the Polish tanks come out, you'll be able to play your either tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, or tier 4 crews inside them without a crew AXP penalty, and this vehicle does get a bonus to crew training. The problem is that it doesn't really make any good credits. This was one of the better games I had in the tank for 461 damage, and we make 12,000 credits profit, which clearly indicates that this is more of a reward vehicle than a pure-blooded premium. And so all in all, you know what, I like it when Wargaming give us funky little reward vehicles as a little bit of a sweetener for just sticking with the game and continuing to play it. But this vehicle, like a lot of their free tanks, I'll tell you, it's probably more of a garage slot than a collector's gem. The lack of view range, firing range, the turret, any kind of mobility, any kind of armor, and really just the overall damage per minute of the vehicle and its inability to clip out a tank in a single magazine like many little low-tier autoloaders can, purely mean that this is going to be one for Polish tank lovers or just people who think that they want to play in this tiny little pesk of a tank. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, but if you hated it, give it a thumbs down, and let me know what you think about the TKS 20 in the comments below. Have you picked one up already? Have you given it a few spins? Did you absolutely like it? Did you absolutely hate it? And have you got any tips and tricks out there for other players who are maybe looking to play the TKS over the upcoming weeks to prepare for Polish tanks? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.